for July 20th, 2022. Sam, roll call, please.
Bhatia.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
Driver.
Here.
Hewitt.
Here.
Bristler.
Here.
Van Beckham.
Here.
Bosanowski.
Here.
Okay, next is the approval of the minutes. Do you want me to move that further down the line to give you a chance to look at them, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Then we're going to move that. We'll move on to old business, which is none. New business, Old Green Bay Road Comprehensive Plan Amendment Application CPA 0122. Sam.
We're good. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the applicant applied to change the village's part of the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Racine County 2035, otherwise known as the plan from here on out, because I'm not going to repeat that again, for 2.91 acres at the corner of Old Green Bay Road, which is County Trunk Highway X, and County Line Road, which is County Trunk Highway KR, from residential areas, including churches, multifamily, to mixed residential commercial. The applicant transportation choices and development patterns that promote efficient and sustainable use of land. In terms of will the proposed amendment lead to any detrimental environmental effects, the village staff do not believe the amendment will lead to any detrimental environmental effects. Development in these areas must follow all applicable village, county, and state environmental regs. The property is not shown for protection on the village's parks and open space plan. There are delineated wetlands on the north corner of the property. However, any development, I think that's the northeast, it says northwest, but it should be northeast corner of the property. However, any development on the property could not fill those wetlands without permission from the WDNR. Proposed amendment compatible with surrounding land uses. The village staff believe the amendment is compatible with the surrounding land uses. The village staff agree that the parcel is unlikely for a state residential development due to two sides of the parcel fronting county trunk highways. Low to moderate intensity residential or commercial development is proper for the corner and would not negatively affect the surrounding estate residential uses. Specifically, if the comp plan amendment leads to B2 zoning, that zone limits drive-through uses and large gas stations to conditional uses. Could you click one, please, Jennifer? So here is the description of the B2 uses. Promote neighborhood, community, and region serving commercial uses. B2 is for moderate intensity neighborhood scale commercial buildings along local arterial or collector streets, of which this is. Allowable uses in those districts include but are not limited to office, medical office, or health practitioner, commercial service, retail sales, restaurants and bars, and daycare subject to approval by the Plan Commission of building, site, and operational plans. So essentially, things that you'd find on the neighborhood corner. Gas stations are limited in size here to 8 pumps or fewer. So you couldn't do like a large gas station. And just as a note, we haven't really seen any neighborhood gas stations built in the last, since Robin and I have been here. It's only been kind of like the bigger quick trips. So I wouldn't really expect one of those at this corner, purely due to the fact that you're so close to 31. Those will probably get pulled closer to the main arterials just to the west. So we would expect either a mixed-use building or a neighborhood commercial building at this corner.
The other conditional use for a B2 is on drive-through uses. They're limited to only one drive-through lane, which, if you guys have noticed, most current drive-through lanes are 2. That's pretty much the standard now. So it would be something like a drive-through bank would probably be okay. Like the small drive-through bank with a bank ATM would be okay, but not like Portillo's, for example.
Moving on, are existing local and county facilities and services adequate to serve the type of development associated with the amendment? The surrounding roadways are sufficient to handle any proposed traffic from low to moderate intensity residential or commercial development. A 16-inch water main and an 8-inch sanitary sewer main both lie within Old Green Bay Road right-of-way. Will the proposed amendment enhance economic development with the county? The village staff find the proposed amendment would enhance economic development with the county. The staff agree that the property is unlikely to develop to limited to estate residential zoning, and the applicant's request to allow low to moderate intensity commercial development on the property could set up uses to serve the adjacent residential areas. Additionally, other existing commercial uses along County Line Road do not negatively affect the adjacent residential uses. Is the proposed amendment in substantial agreement with the recommendations of the regional land use plan? The staff find the proposed amendment agrees with the recommendations of the regional land use plan. Racine County recently upgraded County Line Road to 4 lanes from I-94 through Old Green Bay Road intersection, further showing the area is prepared for slightly more intense uses than in state residential. With that, we recommend, per the plan amendment procedures outlined in Chapter 15, implementation element of the multi-jurisdictional comp plan, that you direct staff to send a notice to all the adjacent governments and schedule a public hearing within 30 days per those procedures and the state statute. So, brief reminder on how this works. You refer it to a public hearing. The staff holds a public hearing in coordination with the village board regarding the proposed amendment. That public hearing has to take place at least 30 days from your recommendation. So there is a notification kind of wait period in the middle there. After that public hearing, it comes back to you. You all make a formal approval denial. This is one of the few items that the Plan Commission has true approval denial authority on. If you choose to approve it, it would go to the village board, then they are the final step. So this is step 1 of 4, essentially, minus all the notifications and stuff that we handle. So all you're really doing today would be forwarding on to a public hearing if you think it is kind of worthy of that next step, which the staff recommended that it is.
That would be September because the next plan commission is only 4 weeks away.
Yep, so these normally take about 90 days. The zoning right now is not up for vote. However, it would come concurrently with the next round if you do move this forward today. So I can answer any questions, but yeah, pretty simple.
Any questions?
Yeah, I'd like you to repeat what you said in regards to the denial and us, if we approve it, you send it to the village board, and once the public hearing actually happens, then we go in and make our recommendation, whether deny or approve. You said if we approve it, then it goes to the village board for their approval?
Correct.
But if we deny it, they cannot approve it?
Correct. This is not a recommendation. It is just a straight approval denial for you at the next step.
Okay, because and I'm just going to go back to when we did the Campbell Woods, obviously it's the other side of the property, when we were working with the senior living center.
That didn't require a comp plan amendment. That was just zoning.
Okay, thank you.
So the comp plan is the one that you have authority over through the state statutes.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yes, Sam, I got a couple of questions. Number one, like you said, it's a light commercial, you talk about gas station, maybe small bank and everything. Mm-hmm. Since the applicants are applying for this, my guess is they probably have a reasonable good idea what kind of businesses they're going to attract. Have you had any discussion? Are they?
They haven't submitted anything formal to us. After I'm done with questions, I'll let the applicant come speak to their future
because the
plans for
reason
the
is
property.
that if you're buying a land and if you're developing, you probably know as a good businessman saying is what I'm expecting, what kind of the tenants.
So the applicant currently owns the property. They're not buying it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They own it. I think they're just trying to prepare it for a third party to market it for a broader range of uses.
Okay. And my number 2 question is on this triangle is on the back of quite a few houses on the Campbell Wood.
Yep.
Is there any plan to put some kind of barriers over there, maybe large trees or some kind of a
I mean, I'd
fence?
argue there's
Because-
already a pretty significant amount of trees, but I will remind you that in the landscaping section of the ordinances, they do require screening from residential areas.
Yeah.
So if a commercial property were to come in
Yeah.
and say what I see as likely would happen would be, small office, something like that on the corner with the parking in the rear. They would need to reserve space to do further screening
For the
from that
screening.
rear parking
Yeah.
area to
Yeah.
the neighbors.
Yeah, I
So-
believe that without the screening, that probably would not fly, but yeah, it requires good screening. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And just as a note, we have, since the last time a Campbell Woods thing was up in front of you, we have completely rewritten the lighting ordinances too. So now they are forced to do only downlighting, very specific cutoffs at the property line and things like that. So even if it were a 2-story building, for instance, they would not be able to uplight the building at all. And they don't get any signage allowance to that's not on like a public frontage area as well. So most of the light, other than perhaps like a wall pack security light or small parking lot lighting, would be facing towards the county trunk highways.
Sam, is this gonna have dual access on KR and Old 31?
I doubt it. Probably access off of Old Green Bay. I'm not sure if the far east property line gets far enough away from the intersection that the county would allow it. But ultimately, because they're both county highways, the county will have to approve any access to either location.
I thought I read right in, right out on KR, but in the packet somewhere.
Yeah, if it's that exists now, I'll let Al speak to that. But sometimes, depending on the change of use, the county sometimes has the authority to further control those access limitations. So, I think like anything, if it's a more intense traffic user, they'll probably be a little bit more strict. They might require traffic impact analysis. If it were like a dentist office or a vet clinic or something like that, then they probably would just say like one access point or low traffic.
Yeah, it's awfully close to the lights, and I don't know how traffic's gonna be now with KR, well, KR is still closed.
Yeah. And they were subject to some land acquisition for that intersection rebuild. So, without reviewing the exact plat, it's ultimately when it's controlled by the county, we just kind of leave it up to them. But my guess is it'll happen at the edge of either portion of the property.
Okay, any other questions of Sam? If not, applicant, would you like to come up, speak?
Good afternoon. My name's Al Nordker. I'm a member of the senior campus, Campbell Woods. And I appreciate you guys taking a look at our application today. Along with what Sam said, I'd like to mention that there are high voltage power lines that separate this property from the Campbell Woods residences. The easement itself is, I think 35 feet, and the restrictions for a buffer there is a total of 74 feet. I think that's 37 feet on either side of the center line. The power lines run right down the property line. In other words, the Campbell Woods residents own half of that easement, and the other half of the easement's on this property. Sam mentioned that the county bought some of the property for the right-of-way improvements, and when they bought the property, they gave us the right in, right out only access off of KR. So I think that might be in concrete, no pun intended, that they did that as part of the purchase. So I don't see how they could take that away. But in any case, the primary access would be off of Old Green Bay Road, I'm sure. It just makes sense to have it on the least busy road. There's pretty good buffer from the residents now, backing up to the power lines, and then to the north of the property, not just northeast and northwest, to the north part of the property. Nothing's going to be built up there anyway. So we're really talking about, say, four or five lots there in Campbell Woods that might be affected by this development. I am just rezoning it to sell it, okay? I have had communications with somebody about a decade ago who is a dentist who this would make a perfect dentist office. And that's kind of what I envision, is that something like that. So with that, happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions for Al? Are the other residents in Campbell Woods aware of this? I'm sure they are.
I've not talked to anybody, but we'll have the public meeting after this meeting, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so in general, the comp plan amendment, this step does not trigger the public notices, but they'll go out at later steps in the process. So this is kind of your preliminary review to see if it even makes sense to move it forward, and then we'll start the public notification process in the next month. It's 45 days.
Okay.
I think in general, that corner has a very limited, what you're going to be able to do on it. And you say you may have a small office there, and the size of the towers and other things that are there, it is going to be very prohibitive to do anything
Yeah.
else.
You know, back in the day, there were restrictions with EMF, and that is, even though I don't believe that, Sam was saying that there isn't a setback requirement in the code now, the stigma of having EMF there would keep people from wanting to have a residence with small children.
Yeah.
It just takes something away from the property as a residence, whereas as a business, it just doesn't matter. The other thing I wanted to mention was that back when we were doing the campus, we did a traffic study. It showed about 10,000 cars entering that intersection a day. With the improvement of Highway KR, my guess is that it's going to be close to double that. I think that KR to Old Green Bay to Taylor will become a way for people to access Racine that are coming from the south, and I think that people coming from Milwaukee will get off at Green Bay, go down to Sheridan, and go on up to Kenosha, like they haven't done before, just because KR has been improved.
Well,
So,
particularly coming off the interstate, they
yeah.
come down KR now, as soon as the overpass over the railroad tracks is completed, which
Yeah.
should be soon, that's going to, enhance a lot more traffic to use that
I
way.
double. I think double. That's my guess.
All the way to Highway 32.
Yes, yeah, and in any case, it makes it better for commercial. Those are the types of things that you think about that makes it better for commercial and less desirable for a place to live. And that's why we want to rezone the property before we sell it.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Any public comment on this? No? Okay. Commissioners, looking for a recommendation motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to direct staff to, one, send a copy of the proposed plan amendment and its report to all adjacent local governments and other parties listed in section 66.10014B of the statutes, and to non-metallic mine operators and other persons listed in section 66.1011014E of the statutes, and two, schedule public hearing on the proposed amendment with the village board with the publishing of a Class 1 notice at least 30 days before the public hearing and containing information required under section 66.10014D of the statutes.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? If
I
not,
think you should make Joe read that again.
yes.
That wasn't good enough, I'm sorry.
If you would read what this applies to, the plan, the full plan. Okay. All right, then we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Al. Thank you. Good luck. Next will be South Fancher Road, County Trunk H, Certified Survey Map Application CSM 0722.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the two applications next on the agenda are kind of related to each other, so I'm going to more or less merge them together. Do you mind if I read through both executive
Go ahead.
summaries and
Nope.
we discuss it?
Go ahead.
Cool. So this application is to rezone the property and submit a certified survey map application to subdivide the property as shown for phase 2 of Longard's development out there. The existing zoning is a mixture of AG1, RL1, RH1, and PD, and they're proposing to amend it to RM2, which is moderate density residential. The applicant proposed splitting the existing parcels into the following parcels. Lot 1, that's 8.3 acres, Lot 2, which is 4.3 acres, an outlot for a pond, and then dedication of rights-of-way for Tivoli Green Lane, which is a short extension kind of heading northwest, the little snaky one that you see at the top there. Megan's Way, which is an extension of the existing right-of-way, and Campus Drive, the intersection at the corner of like the southwest corner of the property. The applicant wishes to develop approximately 200 to 230 townhouse and multi-unit buildings allowed under moderate density 2 residential district. The application is in coordination with that ordinance. Follows the land use element of the comp plan, which is residential areas. The application also follows the transportation element and land use element of the draft local area plan 5. In terms of CSMs, we have a couple conditions for approval. 1, the applicant shall amend the CSM to show boundaries of primary and secondary environmental corridors, isolated natural resource areas as delineated and mapped by sewer pack. There's a small kind of one on the edge of this property along Outlot 1 where they propose to put the pond. 2, the applicant shall amend the name of Tivoli Green Lane per the code, which prohibits newly platted streets named after adjacent businesses or landowners. The application meets the RL1 lot size standards. In terms of a fiscal note, the lands contained with the map amendment and the CSM lie within tax incremental district number 2. The applicant indicated they plan to request assistance for the project. However, the staff did not receive any financial information in concurrent with this project, but any request for assistance would have to go to both the CDA and village board after review from the village's financial advisor. The village assessor estimated the assessed value for each new unit at approximately $150,000 per unit. Therefore, the total assessed value of the project would lie approximately within $30 to $35 million. The village staff estimates the project would use approximately, and I handed out a new sheet for you with some updated numbers, about 7 to 8% of the taxes it pays over 20 years towards the cost of repaving the adjacent local and collector roadways. That's greater than the 6.7% the village spent over the previous 5-year average towards its paving program. This shows the development cost does not adequately cover its share of public infrastructure maintenance costs. However, those estimates include sections of Megan's Way, which is also a collector street, which do not have any proposed adjacent construction in coordination with this application. Therefore, the village staff assumed development on other areas open for development by the extension of Megan's Way would decrease the tax percentages needed for repaving and therefore meet its obligations. The project's estimated value per acre is $1.7 to $1.9 million, which is above the village's target of $1 million an acre. So they're kind of eating some collector street costs on the front end here as the other areas develop with this infill. It'll perform better over the long run. So we didn't ultimately have a concern with the fiscal performance of the project. With that, the village staff have 2 conditions for the CSM. Those are the ones I previously said related to the sewer pack environmental corridors and the name of Tivoli Green Lane. And then regarding the zoning application, the village staff had 1 condition, and that's just it is approved in coordination with the certified survey map so that the parcel lines and the zoning line up. With that, I can answer any of the questions. Otherwise, the applicants from Wangard are here to answer any of your questions on their end.
All right. Any questions of Sam or staff? Okay, gentlemen?
Good afternoon. Mark Lake from Wangard Partners. Here with Matt Maroney, President and CEO of Wangard Partners. We were here a couple years ago and proposing Tivoli Green in its original phase with 278 acres, 278 or 9, can't remember, units. Well, I'm happy to report that we're full. And since we're full, we need to move on to the next phase. As you remember, when we originally purchased this 110 acres, we had multiple phases on this development, and we said that when we would proceed, we would go through a logical progression of what's available. And when you look at your screen, you see the next 2 phases. We look to develop these over the next really 2 years with the We were just talking about it again today, that the orange ones that you see on the site, orange and yellow ones, you would probably see them because there's no new infrastructure requirements, there's no new anything requirements, that those conceivably could start construction this fall. 6 month schedule, they'd be available for rent starting in April or May next spring. So that would meet the prime leasing season for us. And then while those are under construction, we'll work on the extension of Megan's Way and whatever new name we come up for Tivoli Green Lane. New rules. And so we're looking at, again, it shows that we're looking for 220 units on this, and what we did is we took from what planning and what you all at the Plan Commission had recommended, that, okay, if we're going to come in with new phases, that the new phases should appear to be different. And what we did is we have a very successful project up on Economowoc, and it has a new building. You'll see that at the next month Plan Commission. I just dropped them off to Sam. So there'll be new elevations and a new, better site plan, colored site plan and stuff for the next meeting. And what we used is, if you look at Lachlan, we call it the Lachlan, Locklyn, that's the basis of them. They're Craftsman-inspired buildings. They're a little bit smaller than what we have out there right now. Those are 23-unit buildings. There'll be a 20-unit building. And then we're introducing some townhomes. So there'll be 10-unit townhomes, 2 of those buildings on basically either end, the 2 yellow ones that are shown on the plat. And so that's a brand new product for our portfolio, but we're working on developments in Madison, and it's a very highly requested product in there, and because we have a lot of families that come up that want 2 and 3 bedrooms, more 2 bedrooms with more room, unlike we can supply in our 2-story walk-ups. Our 2-story, our townhomes are actually 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, but they have 2-car garages. Very much in demand, and we anticipate those to fill up really right away when we're doing them. So that's why probably we can, get them started in the first phase. But I think it's the prices and everything else are out there. We know what COVID has done to us, and it's a difference from what we started to what it is now. We're just looking to move forward, and hopefully the demand is still there for us. So, anything?
Well, the fact that you're full right now speaks highly of your business plan and the quality.
Congratulations
That's
on that.
fantastic.
Thank you.
That really is. Any other questions of Mark? Go ahead.
A quick question. In your current, what I call the phase 1, what has been built, so you have built a beautiful clubhouse. I was just driving over there, and would that be accessible to the new phase 2? And if
Yes.
so, is that adequate to serve all your tenants?
We sized it such that, again, this development is a multi-phase development, 110
Correct.
acres.
Yeah.
So it will size everything north of Megan's Way. And what I did mention on this drawing, above, see the left on the screen, see the left building? Just northeast or northwest of there, we're also installing a maintenance building. It's about 1,600 square feet. It's a maintenance, and it's going to cover both projects. So this clubhouse and pool is sized for both of our projects. When we do discuss, and we do come back for the future, everything south of Megan's Way, we actually anticipate another clubhouse and another, that will take care of whatever product that we come in with at that point in time, but we anticipate that to be several years from now.
And my other, actually, when I looked at the package, my other concern was about the pond, but I see that you already have showing planning to build a new pond
Correct,
on
yeah.
the rest house,
So
that
this,
alleviates my concern.
so the work that we're gonna do, hopefully this fall, which is the yellow and the orange buildings, already go into that pond. They already have the utilities except for there's a small chunk of water main that we didn't install for various reasons. But that's the only thing. So that whole area goes into that existing pond. All the new buildings that are in blue, and then the land that goes out to Fancher Road would go to the new pond, including part of Campus Drive.
Oh, okay.
Would go to that new pond. And, you know, that'll start out, and, you know, while we're building this, we could start the pond and have it ready for the grading, because that'll take some time.
That makes sense, yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You talked about a maintenance building, and you were using one of the apartment complexes for office or for leasing and everything like that. Are you
Yep.
gonna have any special buildings for leasing or on-site people?
Well, right now, we have our clubhouse. Our clubhouse is our main leasing office.
Okay.
So until we
Where
got
the
a
pool
clubhouse,
is.
we had to do it. But we will probably have, because the townhome will be new,
Okay,
and we probably will, at least initially, probably have a unit of our new building, because they will be new as well.
Sure.
You know, if you want to see what they look like, go look at Lachlan, or go online, Lachlan, that's our new building. That's our new unit. But people want to feel and touch, right? So we'll probably have one or two of those units available for a model. But all leasing is done out of the clubhouse.
Okay. Anything else?
What's within that, on the left side, the rectangle that goes, so is that the existing buildings or what?
No, the yellow one or black one?
No, the extreme left on the Fancher Road, where it comes like, goes like
There's a
this.
black line, the black one down, or that one, on the purple one.
I mean-
That is, we're leaving that out of rezoning to multifamily. We anticipate, and we've worked at, that was a commercial corner. We're not prepared to do it. We'll take care of that when Campus Drive goes through.
Oh, I see, okay, so there.
There's
that is-
there's no benefit for us or you to develop that right now, as long as as Fancher Road and Campus Drive are not connected.
So Sam, that area would stay the current existing?
Correct. Yep, it'll come back later.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions of
Well,
Mark.
the only question I have is for staff here, and maybe Mark can help here too. It shows Campus Drive is, and I don't have the dimensions here, but Campus Drive is fully on the Mount Pleasant land, and there's I'll call it, lack of a better term, a spite strip there, if you will. That's going to be Layton land that we're going to own north of Campus Drive. Why are we not making some type of I'll call it a curve in there, and then have the Tivoli be part of and share the cost of putting that road in? Because otherwise, at this point, we're going to be on the hook for that, correct?
Yeah, there's some wetlands up there that don't show up on
Large
the map,
one.
as well as the environmental corridor. So we're trying to essentially cross some wetlands at their narrowest point to minimize fill and also avoid that environmental corridor. So it looks
Okay.
less large on the aerial that you see in front of you, but they're actually kind of finger out south from that wetland as the water drains from the northwest to the southeast.
I assume that we would just deed that land over then? Is that something that we would do, or would just leave it?
It depends on what we use it for. I mean, if it's, if there are stormwater features or something that end up going in there, we might keep it. But if not, then we'll probably work out some sort of agreement to deed it over.
Okay, and then one last question, is Campus Drive, as it attaches to Highway H, are we still looking at a roundabout? Is that going to be in the books, or?
We are. They kind of ghosted in that circle there. So yes, the goal of that is to really slow down traffic as it's hitting H, because there's still some single-family homes out there, so kind of deflect any direct major connection from Campus Drive. We're figuring that'll be a pretty main corridor east-west once that's fully complete in the future, as well as slow down traffic and help with queuing as it goes both north and south, because the next intersections really are Spring Street to the north. The next main intersections are Spring Street to the north and 20 to the south. So roundabouts typically in the long run help kind of spread out the traffic and help with the queuing there. So we are committed to it. Obviously, that's subject to final approval by the county, because Fancher is a county trunk highway too. So, but the applicant has gone through some traffic impact analysis, and the county's generally on board with the plan.
Yeah, because obviously you guys are going to continue to the south. You have how many more acres there in that box? I know it's several years out, but that's going to be a lot of vehicular traffic.
Yeah,
60
exactly.
more acres?
65, I think, outside of the wetlands.
Okay, thank you.
Probably include another pond, and then the rest of the development, yep.
Okay, thanks.
Just to chime in a couple of things about there is that, one, I mean, with the roundabout, we're not really assuming that the county is going to upgrade H to 4 lanes almost like ever, because, I mean, where are they going to get the money to do that? And then two, this particular thing has that first connection out to H, which actually was a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting that, which will provide basically an outlet and access into this development that doesn't have to go through Old Spring or any of the existing subdivisions. They can come in straight off 90th through Megan's Way, or H through this formerly named Tivoli Green Lane. Just put an asterisk on the sign. But so that will alleviate a lot of the traffic concerns and pressure, at least from those directions. So that is pretty cool. And then also the Campus Drive extension, that's a big project. It's going to be a part of something larger and other discussions, and so we'll have to talk about that.
One of the promises that we made to the homeowners condos to the north was that when we would do an additional phase of our development, we would get out to Highway H as fast as possible. And we don't control the development of Campus Drive, which is why the newly unnamed road, it shows up on the plan. But
Wangard Way or something?
no.
That also violates the ordinance.
Yeah.
That's Sam's anti-ego ordinance that I put in the subdivision. So,
Well, then make it Sam's Way.
Yeah.
no, thank
Sam's
you.
Way or the highway.
No, thank you.
You don't like Megan's Way? You knew it. Megan had to. It was her. It's her way or the highway.
All right, any other questions of Mark or Matt? Or staff? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for your time.
Any public comment? If you could come up, we'd like name and address, please.
Travis Yankee, 103 Trellis Lane, been a resident here since 2009. Got some comments here I want to fill you guys in on, but since you guys are smoking and joking here about traffic violations and how much fun it is to talk about traffic, I just want to point out that I'm here to say that what I said was going to happen in my subdivision has come to fruition. Trying to feed out into Megan's Way out into H is not going to help. All kinds of cars are coming through on Portico, coming through our subdivision. I can put a traffic meter out there, Sam, anytime you want, and you'll see how much is coming through. And, feeding out in Megan's Way out to H isn't going to help, because I have cars coming down 90th Street, cutting on Hollyhock just to get onto the north side. So anybody that's living in those apartments isn't going to take your new road out to H, no matter how much you guys think it's going to work. We have multiple problems with our bus stop every day. People that don't live in the subdivision, that don't know the neighbors, fly out of those apartments and come up to Old Spring and go on their merry way to Milwaukee. And the same can be said coming home. And I'm sure you guys are aware of the traffic on 90th Street. You build 65 more acres here, you're gonna need a four-lane highway on 90th Street, not on Highway H. I can say for a fact, every day I live in the subdivision, people are not taking H anymore. They cut over to 90th. They come up over from Spring across Old Spring and go straight down 90th. Most times they're doing 45 to 60 miles an hour. You sit in my house in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and it looks like Highway 20 behind my house. You add another 1,000 units here, it's gonna be 10 times worse, if not worse. But while I'm here, I want to talk to you guys about, you probably remember being here in October 2018, 2019, when you guys approved all this. And I've come to realize that the deal's already done. You guys are just a rubber stamp. It'll go to DeGroot on Monday, rubber stamp it again. The deal's been done with Wingard already and been made. What I want to remind you guys of, though, is the money that you guys had to pony up and give to Wingard after the deal was done. They were given $9 to $10 million in a TIF, public funds, a public fund subsidizing a private corporation. Are they going to do the same thing this time if they decide not to build? I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure here. There's a lot of roadways. That's going to cost a lot of money. Sam's already highlighted it. And Sam's on record at one of the last plan commissions saying how SR Mills is going to need some extra money to do his development down in KR because of all the road work. Am I going to be on the hook again as a public taxpayer to pay for these guys to get rich and ruin my neighborhood? Probably. That's the way Mount Pleasant operates. So I just want you guys to know that giving public funds to these guys to develop, if it happens to happen again, is kind of sickening. And I want to know on record, do you guys even know that's going to happen again this time, or is it going to be done by the closed session on Monday night?
Thank you, Travis. I just want to make one point, Travis. These roads are all public. There are no private roads. And that's what means for the community to move about, is to have roads.
All right, but you guys feel like it's all a done deal, it's gonna be safe. I live there. Lockwood's on record for last time saying, oh, my kids shouldn't play in the street, they're gonna get run over, tough luck, we're not gonna close off streets. You guys don't care.
We do.
You just want the tax dollars and the money from these guys. You don't care about us as residents.
No, we do care, and that's why we're called a planning department. We plan. And it might not agree with what you want.
Not me, a taxpayer.
Well, it might not agree with what you would like to see, but for the benefit of the good of the community, it does.
The good of the village,
That's correct.
not counting the residents.
The village is the residents.
You ask anybody out there.
Well, like,
Every one of the people that sets up against the subdivision was against it.
okay. All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
I'd just like to make a note on Travis's that we haven't even begun any sort of request for financial assistance. As you know, I highlighted in my executive summary, that would not be done by Monday. So any request for assistance for any public infrastructure or anything else would have to be approved by the CDA and village board, and that's.
So you're not saying no, Sam?
No, I'm not saying no.
$5 million again.
There is a process that anyone can apply for, and we just follow the process to see whether it complies or not. So take it on a case-by-case basis, and we'll have to review the numbers if they choose to apply.
And I want to add something that on the committee of the whole meeting a couple of weeks ago, the two trustees were there. I kind of went over the local area 5 transportation plan and some of the aspects of that. One thing that the resident would be, I assume, happy to know is that our long-term plan is to basically limit the Old Spring to Spring traffic to be only a sort of a cut off the left-hand turn to go from Old Spring taking a left on the Spring. It's a very dangerous left-hand turn right there, and so we want to make that basically a right in, right out kind of situation, or left in, right out, and that would ease some of that. Also, using some of the TID funding, we are adding additional sidewalks to fill in the gaps in the Heartland Village subdivision, and that's without assessing anybody or anything like that. So we're using those TID dollars in order to kind of complete sidewalk networks, so on and so forth. I've also kind of gone into maybe that we're looking to do any more traffic calming measures, such as bump outs or sort of speed bumps or anything like that in order to do that. Those roads in that subdivision are very wide. So when you have a wide, unlike the ones in the apartment complex, when you have a wider road like that, drivers tend to go faster. So we're addressing that with these kind of more traffic calming measures that we're including in other developments, like this one, like the one down on KR and 31. So if they're interested in like those, they can contact the Public Works Department and say, hey, we want traffic calming measures on our particular roads, and they've looked very kindly upon those requests in the past. So that is from the sort of the local area plan traffic edition from the Cal meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robin. Yes, if you could come up to the microphone, give us your name and address, please.
John Drusicki. I live over in Heartland Village. I just had a curiosity question, I guess, for the village, the people that live in Heartland Village that already live there. What are the positive things that you guys see that this development did for them? And then the second thing is, what's the reason for, you said the community, what's the positive things for the community with this development?
Okay. Sam, you want to answer those, or?
Firstly, this is all based on our comp plan, so it's providing housing demand for the long-term growth of the village. So we've indicated previously in reports to the Plan Commission, the village underbuilt housing for about a decade after the 2008 crash.
So do you guys think this is a permanent, so these are permanent residences, people that come here to live here permanently, or just?
We don't,
Is there option?
yeah, it's their option. We have any zoning regulations that require that someone buys or rents or stays for a specific amount of time. The village has a mixture of both, I would
Yeah.
say.
It's planned growth. I mean, are you saying that you want to see no growth whatsoever?
I guess the density, that was another question I had. Are the apartments that were built previously, were done, is this proposal, are these units going to be denser than the ones that were built?
They'll actually be slightly less dense. They're capping them at 20 units a building, and the townhomes, I believe, only have 12 units adjacent, 10 side by side. So this development would actually be slightly less dense than the first phase.
And we don't see that right now. Those plans have not been submitted to us, the Plan Commission, yet. So that's at a future meeting.
And to kind of go into some of the overall benefits of this particular tax increment district, not only was the initial creation of this tax increment district responsible for this building that we're sitting in right now, but through the Tivoli Green development and other developments in this particular tax increment district, they've made other things possible, like you'll hear in just a second from George, the new expansion to Campus Park. There are some TID funds that have been used to sort of supplement that budget and to get a very nice amenity. And it makes sense to spend that kind of money on an amenity when you're attracting new residents and new residents are moving in and at a density that pays for the infrastructure over time. So that's what we've always been kind of, pitching. And apparently people are liking what they see, and they like moving in. You can kind of tell just by a number of people jogging, walking, using the pickleball courts, all that sort of stuff. So that's the positive amenity from these kind of things.
I mean, you guys realize that the people that are already here in houses, why would they want a denser population, a denser residential area?
Well, I recognize that. I think everyone would like to see a park across the street from their home, but that's not reality.
Well,
To speak to your...
There's a lot of difference between a park and
Okay.
and
But to
apartments.
speak to your neighborhood right now, part of the reason why your neighborhood looks the way it does, as nice as it does, is because of planning. So that's, prior to you being there was other people that spoke out against your development. And so we have to take all these things into consideration.
So are you going to do that with this next phase and be involved in what the buildings look like, et cetera?
We are always involved in what the buildings look like. That's part of our site plan process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Any other public comment? If we're being recorded, so if you could name again.
Sorry about that. I apologize for getting heated. Again, you make the comments about community. I'm vested in this community. I bought property here before the balloon popped, built when it did, and these guys are coming in here. It's purely a business. You guys talk about community. Majority of the people, I've lived in apartments. These guys live in apartments in Milwaukee. you might think it's a community, but you're not there for the long run. It's basically, you're looking at this for tax building and growing your TID and doing your fun things over here. Building a community, I don't see like nicer things coming this side of 20. I mean, newer grocery stores, all the things that come with it. It's just high density apartments. I mean, the same things are probably going to happen next to V and south of Old Spring or Spring Street with some of that density. It's not community in my opinion. It's just short-term housing for folks that need it, that live in Milwaukee, work in Milwaukee, or work in Illinois. Not folks that work at Case, not folks that work at Racine Unified, not folks that work at Foxconn. So I think you guys should amend the use of community when you're talking about these high-density places.
I guess I don't make a differentiation between someone who owns a 10-acre parcel or an apartment dweller. I make no they are our community. They live here. We are to service them. You're making a distinction that that's a different.
So do you live next to 220 apartments, Mr. Driver?
I live quite close to some. Yes, I do. Quite close.
And they come flying through your neighborhood on a daily basis?
It has happened, yes. And that's the way it is. I mean, that's why we do things like traffic calming, and when those are brought to our attention, we address them.
As far as positive things that we're doing too, you can look across over here where we're building a beautiful park with all kinds of amenities over there, like that, spending lots and lots of money over there so that people have a place where they can go with recreation and their families and everything too. Have you noticed that over there? Well, go out Campus Drive that way and look across the street, and you can see a huge amount of things that are being built over there, and as far as playgrounds and other things for adults and for children.
I mean, there are portions of this community that would like to live in apartments that don't want to own a property. So I don't make a differentiation in housing between them. If we can accommodate, we do, and that's part of our growth.
John Ronzoni, 9112 Dahlia Lane. I'm in Heartland Village also. My question was, and as Travis has already explained, I'm not going to cover the ground he already did, but one of my questions is, with all these additions coming, and also the talk about putting a convention center over here across the way, and I'm hearing there's no plans to increase the size of County H. What's going to happen with 90th? We're going to get more traffic, I would assume, coming there. Or is that going to be restricted? Is this as far as it's going to grow?
90th was built to handle a lot more than it's handling right now. And at some point, if that gets exhausted, then we would look at H, but that's a county road. That's not our road.
We have no control over that.
I'll chime in just because local area plan, transportation plan, stuff like that. Staff do not recommend like any kind of hope or thought to widen either of those lanes or either of those routes. I mean, we don't control the county's one, but we do control 90th. I would highly recommend against any thought of widening 90th. 90 is already wide. At 2 lanes, and 2, it would ruin the walkability of the neighborhood. You see people jogging, walking the dogs, riding their bikes, stuff like that. I think people go a little bit too fast on 90th right now, and widening it would only worsen that problem and make it less safe for people to walk over the campus park and stuff like that. So the long-term plan is to basically keep those street networks the same and make this area more walkable and more safe for everybody to walk around and enjoy without jumping in a car. So like a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old kid can bike around and be safe. That's the plan, that's the goal.
Are there any plans for more light at Megan's Way with all these additional units being put up?
Now, a traffic light? Oh,
Yes.
no, that was not justified there. That's a huge expense, and ultimately it sometimes makes accidents more dangerous having a traffic light as opposed to a controlled intersection, because when people blow through a traffic light, they're doing so at full speed thinking it's green, and that creates a more serious accident. If there's basically a hope, or if somebody said, I might have to stop here, they usually go a bit slower. So we do look at measures to, slow traffic down and all that sort of stuff, and that's why we've recommended, eventually when we get over to Fancher there, that's going to be a roundabout. So that'll slow the cars down. Well, not like a huge one with slip lanes and stuff, but something a little bit tighter.
Okay. The other thing I thought was when we were talking about this way back when, in 2018, 19, whatever it was, the issue with Megan's Way going through to H was because H was a county. Now we're saying this new road will be able to go through H. Doesn't the county have a say in that?
They have a say in where it intersects, for sure, and if it does, and it's their right of way. But I mean, since that time, this has been the plan. Like, since that initial phase, that Campus Drive extending from where it is across has always been the plan. The county is aware of that. It's on our sort of long-term plans, all that sort of stuff. And they've been very good to work with as far as these kind of additional accesses. They just approved a new access for the Leo development on the church driveway that we're converting to a public road. So we feel that, especially with the limited number of street intersections and accesses on H here, there's quite a bit more to be had before it's kind of tapped out, as it were. I think the official thing is every 2,000 feet there can be one, and we've gotten them down to about 1,250. So there are quite a few more accesses that can be done.
But I guess my question is on there, that Tivoli Green Lane, that, if I understood you correctly, that was going to H?
Yeah.
And that's, the county has approved that?
I think they kind of have to whenever we dedicate the right-of-way and start to do those conversations, so, yeah.
So that will be going through when this new construction?
Absolutely. It wouldn't make sense without it.
Okay. All right. And my other question was with that construction, we had like 2 years of all that construction traffic in Heartland Village. That's not going to be coming down our way. Take that all. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, any other questions of staff or of the developers? Yes.
Can I ask a question to the applicants? In your current phase one, I'm assuming it's all built and all done. And because I remember at that time, both these gentlemen and many other residents were here and they expressed their concern. And one of the concerns was with all these people renting, the crime rate will go up and everything. Obviously, I don't have a number, but based on my observation, and I drive around here, I haven't seen that. So my question to you is, what's the occupancy rate? Are these 100% occupied or less than 30%, 20%?
100%.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah, because the reason that I want to bring it up is because I do remember those conversations. You were right. It was late December 2018, and we had probably hundreds of residents of your neighborhood. And I do remember I stopped at your house and to listen to your concern. Like Chairman Davis has already said that I wish we could agree with everyone all the time, but that's our job, is to listen to the community overall and to do the what's overall good for the community. And sometimes we agree with the most of the people, and other time we have to use our judgment. And I wish we could agree with everyone all the time, but that's not going to happen. That's the way the process is. The reason that I'm kind of bringing it up is that 100% occupancy, if somebody has a number, you tell me, but I haven't seen any substantial increase in the traffic. I haven't seen increase in the crime rate. That was a big concern. And obviously, I would be concerned too. But I haven't seen those. And number two, as I'm looking at the plans and I looked over the weekend and I'm listening to, it seemed to me that phase two should actually alleviate your concern, because if I rent one of these properties, or if I am working on toward 94, I probably would have the access to the Fancher Road Highway H. And if I'm working on the south, I probably would come and take the campus drive. And if I'm coming from the north, I probably would have the Megan Drive, so I can see these three main access for the new resident or the new people who will be renting. So that, I think, should alleviate some of your past concern to go through your housing area. I mean, I could be wrong, but again, my job is to listen to all kind of issues from all kind of arguments, and then to make the best decision what's overall for the community. Thank you.
All right, if there's no further discussion, then a motion on the certified survey map application first, and then we would move to the zoning map amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the County Highway H CSM application CSM-0722 to the village board, subject to the recommended conditions as presented.
Second. Motion and second. Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then on the ordinance for the zoning map amendment. If I could have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the ordinance 20-2022, a zoning map amendment for land along County Highway H, the zoning map amendment application ZMA 0722, the village board, subject to the recommended condition.
Second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. We're looking forward to it.
Mr. Chair, we're in for about an hour. Do you want to take a 5-minute break?
Yes, we will take a 5-minute break. Next on the agenda is the text amendments, Division 90-110, residential districts. Robin, talk to
Okay,
us.
so I had the clicker, then I started chat, and then it got back. Okay. All right, so this, this particular one, we decided to, I guess, put a pin in and put back in the oven for a little bit. Just because the more and more we thought about it, the more and more things came up that we're kind of like, okay, does this make sense? Is this consistent? So, and I can give you guys just a brief overview of the things that we kind of look at right here. So this is a different view of our zoning ordinances. It's a kind of side by side, and this is reminiscent of our old monster table that we used to have in the old code. This is, Nancy remembers it well. This is okay to look at to compare certain things, but obviously not really great for the public to consume. So this page right here breaks down all the sort of regulations by, and this is how it is in the zoning code, by housing type. So the housing types are detached and 2-unit, twin house, townhouse, cottage court, and multi-unit. And so this breaks down the comparisons of heights, setbacks, building codes, all that sort of stuff. So, and this one, is that dark? It's not that dark, okay. Is it broken down by zone. So the RE zone, RL1, RL2, RM, and then RM2, RH, RH2. Some of the things that kind of poke out at us is that the real big discrepancy when it comes to, obviously, the RH1, RM2, those were kind of multifamily districts considered in the last one. And so we've added single family and duplex abilities to these districts to create a more varied neighborhood. Like, you know, you can have 1 unit, 2 unit, and then have a 4 or an 8, just like how neighborhoods used to grow all the time. But in order to kind of keep it consistent, obviously, if you are next to a building that happens to be 60 feet tall, is it really fair to say that your single family house can only be 35 feet tall? And just like in the lesser districts, we basically think no, like you can go a little bit higher. The standard for sort of a lot of urban lots is like maybe like 45 to 55 feet. That's where you get 3 stories and then like the skinny pencil homes. You don't get a lot of them, but it's still, the ability is there. So we are considering those kind of changes as far as height goes. And currently you can see a lot of duplication, especially for either 1 and 2 units in the it's basically RM and RH all has one classification for 1 and 2 units, and it's the detached and single family. It is basically the 7,200 square foot lot, maximum 60 feet, minimum 35, and that's and it has the setback of a 15 feet or 10 feet if it's got an alley serve. We're kind of saying that that could be stratified a little bit, maybe a little bit bigger in an RM1, because that is our sort of, we've been tossed around the term that RM1 would be like a suburban moderate density, and RM2 is more of an urban moderate density. We're kicking around these kind of terms. So the 2 things I think that I wanted to bounce off of you guys is basically the ability to do match and increase some aspect of the heights for different kinds of units to not be as high, but be in somewhat of a little bit higher than where the multifamily units come in. So if they can do something like that, a 1 or 2 unit building can kind of match a little bit. Y'all understand? Mm-hmm. The other thing is also in those zoning districts to have a corresponding increase in property coverage. Now, the thing is we're talking about this a lot. Do we have a single RH2 zoned property in the village right now, Sam?
No.
No, we don't. So this is not anything that's on the table that's out there right now at all. So it's purely theoretical if we wanted to kind of think about these kind of things. And especially if somebody's going to zone to RH2, then it's going to be, I can't see them being like, oh, let me just put a bunch of single family units on it, but who knows? So we're going to like level that out, and also with some of the setback requirements, maybe in these more urban ones, actually just setting a 10-foot setback. And something like an RH2, they could do a 0 if they wanted to. That would be in kind of like these pre-planned developments, something like the things that you've been seeing, where if it's inside something like a Tivoli Green or whatever, we basically have to enforce a 10-foot setback from an imaginary lot line. But what if that messes with the concept? That kind of thing came up a lot in the Leo development, that some of these arbitrary setbacks for 1 and 2 family units really messed with the internal layout of the Leo admin. And so they had to go private roads and all that sort of stuff in order to make that thing work. And that is something of a smaller, tighter, single 1 and 2 family urban form that, I mean, the zoning code should allow. We got it, but we had to tweak some things, and that's why we're coming here and talking to you guys about this. So that's a lot of rambling. To sum up, and I'll give a TLDR, and I'll just chime in to Sam to see if I got it all. But basically, what we're trying to talk about is raising detached and 1 and 2 family heights to sort of mirror some of the districts that they're in, and corresponding the setbacks and lot coverages for those. Does that pretty much sum it up, Sam?
Yeah. So to further clarify, if you right now take the RM2 zoning district, moderate density 2, we allow single family duplex in those zones, but they're capped at a shorter height limit than an adjacent multifamily building that could be built in the same zone. So we're saying in the moderate and high density zones, we'd like to make some of the height limits and the setbacks a little bit more consistent, to allow, theoretically, if you're going in a bit denser of a zone, that that zoning would be a little bit more consistent between building types. So where that really starts to get funky, as Robin highlighted, is you get into the H, high density zones. We're going to cap a house at 35 feet, but if you're in an RH2 district, that could theoretically be in the same zone next to a multifamily building that's 90 feet tall. And we're like, well, what purpose is capping a height limit in a high density zone when it can be next to a 90-foot tower? Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. At that point, if someone's willing to build a single family home, you might as well grant them a little bit more height flexibility. So really, we're just trying to take this massive table that you see in front of it and further condense it down so that when you are asked to rezone a parcel, you truly have a little bit better grasp in terms of the intensity of the building that's allowed in that zoning district.
And the other thing, and it just popped in my head, is that so there are a couple of regulations that basically are your density cap, as I like to call it. A lot of lot coverage can be one. We used to have a concept called FAR, floor area ratio, meaning that how much sort of building stuff could be on a lot before it basically taps out. We actually went to the lot coverage measure because floor area ratio unfairly penalizes height. And that just seems to be kind of inefficient, if you ask me. You don't need to penalize height any more than it costs more to go up. So the other thing is that those measures are the minimum lot area per dwelling unit, and the sort of like allowed number of attached units. So we were going to kind of try to get those to be similar. Something that is obviously that's a discrepancy right now is in that in RM1, a cottage court development could be 1,400 per unit, but a multifamily unit is 2,400 per unit. So we would want to try to match those up a little bit. And since we passed the cottage court thing about like you can have a little bit more units per lot, how that works, then we can establish that could be the RM2 cottage court, the one that we passed, and RM1 would be a slightly like toned down version of it. So those are all kind of things that we're mulling. So, and we thought that this needed a little bit more time in the oven. So we're kind of just opening up the discussion.
Robin, did this come to you in your sleep? What triggered this, or is it discussion, or are you going back through, or requests for, as we're getting changes and requests from outside and developments and different things?
What you need to
This
do-
isn't something that just popped into your head.
What you need to do is buy Sam a certain number of beers and just tell him, ask him, hey, do you got any theories on how Robin's brain works? And it's going to be a long conversation. But I will tell you that certain inspirations for these kind of things is following thought leaders, looking at best practices from other communities. And I do have a 32-minute commute, so that it gives me a lot of time to think about these kind of things. And does this make sense? Does that make sense? Ultimately, we want more of a simple code than not, and I think that's sometimes why I think we wanted to run this by you again, because we don't want what do we used to have, 17 residential districts? We don't want that. We want something that's simple, but we want something that makes sense and kind of has a theme for each particular district. That's, okay, that's what.
Remember when we went through the whole recoding and everything like that, you said there's gonna be changes as you work through it. Mm-hmm. And we see it.
Yeah, so I think that this is a pretty good thing, and it reflects some of the bumps that we've run into in this time. So we had a bump in the Bear development about, setbacks and, required spaces and stuff like that. With the cottage courts in the Leo development, there was a couple of bumps and asks for administrative adjustments to ease this or that. So it is a learning experience, and this is kind of what we're giving you a lot of what we learned. So if that sounds good to you, we can have some recommendations and an ordinance probably next month.
I think the way this would look, if you can imagine it, is right now, each individual unit type in the zoning code has its own table in terms of lot and size regulations. This would look like a more consolidated and simple table to address lot and setback regulations across zoning districts. So effectively, the residential districts would have more or less two governing tables. One would be what types of units are allowed in what zone, and the other one would be in specific zones, here are the setbacks that govern all the types of allowed units in that zone. So we're going from like 6 or 8 different tables down to a few. So that's what we would bring you next month if that sounds interesting to you all.
Yes, I think that sounds good.
Yeah,
What-
it would, and as you've done in the past, putting it in a visual format too, so that we can see what those changes are, how that impacts it, because that's always much better.
I'm going to give it to you and probably more graphs than you really care want, but in different representations with red and former and cross-outs and former stuff like that. And I think it is a little redundant to have it expressed in different ways, but if you're Nancy Washburn, land developer, and you're like, my thing is I do single family units, and so I want to look at what I can do with single family units in these zones and find out what meets my need. And if somebody else goes, well, I just like high density, they can look and see, okay, I have this zone, I want to see what I can build in this zone. So that having both those tables will help our developers be able to choose sites better and make zoning asks.
And like Joe said, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So,
Well, a graph is about 2,000 words right there. It's a little bit much. So we're going to move on. So any other parting thoughts on that one?
go
Robin,
forward.
before you move on, whether it's 1,000 words or 2,000 words. I would also suggest that in addition to presenting here, can you either give us a hard copy or include in the package for those of us? It'll be good to, when we can't sleep at night, to look at that.
Yeah, so this was basically, we decided to pull this item for consideration pretty late in the game, and so we didn't.
No,
and
I do understand that, but as good at it as it is to present, but I'm not that smart or intelligent to digest everything, so it's good to have a hard copy for
So
us.
not only will I give you guys the graph, I will also give you real world examples of where you can find buildings that are shaped like the ones that we are talking about.
Now you just increase that to 3,000 words.
Yeah, lots of them.
All right,
All right.
let's go on to sidewalks and pedestrian circulation.
Okay, so this is.
Wait,
Oh,
Chief has
Chief,
Chief.
yes,
Yes, please.
under 1,000 words.
Am I saying? I'm not a
No, he wants pictures.
Oh, for this one or for the last one? Am I going back? Oh, okay. Oh, no. I'm sorry.
Ed Lockhart, South Shore Fire, 658 Hunter Drive. Beyond the aesthetics, 35-foot building height, 60-foot building height. One thing we all need to consider is what the community is really going to look like, and I kind of get the higher density concept for developers, builders, all that stuff. 35-foot type 5 wood frame building isn't going to be sprinklered. 1 or 2 family, or 3 family. And if we're going above 35 feet in height, I assume, or what I'm getting for inference is you're probably increasing number of living units. So if you're going three family, 3-story building, it's not going to be sprinklered in the state. 60-foot building, multifamily apartment is fully sprinklered and fully alarmed. So if you want visuals, go to Google like City of Milwaukee fires, Boston fire, New York fires, where they got high density buildings with no setbacks, they're wood frame and they're really close together. Unfortunately, our fire department's not set up for that right now because it comes with the cost. We don't carry any more 45, 55-foot extension ladders for buildings beyond 2 stories in height that are wood frame. The only thing we got's an aerial truck that if we get it down the street and positioned right away from the building, we could get up to a 3rd-story building. So these are all things we got to think about collectively, not just from the development end, when we talk about higher density buildings and populations in the community. Any questions of me?
No, that's good points.
All right, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that is for 1 and 2 family units. It wouldn't be for multi, like some sort of even detached homes in cities could be 45 feet if you have like an attic with dormers and stuff like that or whatnot. So those are all considerations to have, and we're mostly kind of having this to allow to have pockets of density to where it works when it's close together, and leaving the stuff that was built, as like low density, and that's people choose to live there. They like living there. So we're not gonna mess with that. That is what it is. So this will be for, different pockets, so that can be like a workable, walkable place. So we will definitely be in consultation with the fire department about any sort of things. We just got a 3-story submission, 50 units of building. We've been in talks with fire about that the entire time, so, and incorporating some of their suggestions. So, all right, moving on. Okay, so this is the sidewalks and pedestrian circulation. Largely unchanged from last month, save one amendment. Thank you to Mr. Van Beckham. Basically specifying in lieu of sidewalk or multi-use path, being consistent with how we describe these things throughout the rest of the code. being very clear as what this is. So basically, it says that sidewalks or multi-use pathways must be provided on all sides of every lot that abuts a public street. Racine County and WisDOT, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, hold final authority to require sidewalks in their rights of way. So what we thought is we have some parcels out there that are just way out there, and maybe they don't want to put sidewalks, or it doesn't really make sense. So it's not fair to then require it of some and then not require it of others. But so we basically added a way to sort of satisfy the fairness aspect and then kind of work for everybody. We actually have 2 variance cases about this very issue tonight. If you guys want to,
I think we talked about this regarding the Lewis Sorensen Road in construction.
Yep.
And
Both of them on the north and south of the same intersection on Lewis Sorensen Road and the frontage road. So the amended ordinance reads, if the community development director, public works director, and the applicant for a proposed development agree to the following conditions, the village may accept a payment of Lewin sidewalk or multi-use path. The village shall set the payment amount using the village's 5-year average of sidewalk construction costs per square foot. I guess that would also apply for asphalt paths, multi-use paths, but we haven't really done a whole lot of those. The village shall place the payment in a fund exclusively used for new or upgraded pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. That way, this money stays doing the same thing, just somewhere else. The construction of the sort of requirements, the construction of a sidewalk or multi-use pathway is impractical or infeasible, and the lot does not currently lie adjacent to any existing sidewalk or multi-use pathway, and the village does not plan to construct adjacent sidewalks or multi-use pathways in the village's 5-year capital improvement plan, and the adjacent roadway uses a rural cross-section. So that basically gives developers an out. They would save money by this because the most expensive time to purchase anything is usually now, not a 5-year average from now. So they would save some money, but it would be utility for everyone, and we'd be able to. We have a lot of empty sort of gaps in sidewalks in the village, and I don't know if you guys know, people don't really like getting assessed. Special assessments for sidewalks, not very popular.
Mr.
So-
Chairman,
Yes.
I'll have to think about that, but just on top of my head, I don't like the idea. It's like a sidewalk for sale. I mean, I can understand that if it's not feasible, but I thought all the planning for the future is that we should have the sidewalks. So, as I say, I'll have to think about that, and maybe in the future you can present some example where it could apply. But right now, on top of my head, I don't like the idea of we sell you a sidewalk. If you don't want it, pay us the money, and I just don't get a good feeling.
So the variances tonight are the impetus for this. The idea of that these are both on the Louis Sorensen and frontage road. Each of these parcels between the 2 frontages, each of them are basically constructing a 1/4 mile of sidewalk around the corner. It's a lot. And they are saying that it's useless, which is not, because a 1/4 mile sidewalks is a significant amount of sidewalk wherever you put it. However, it is not connected to anything right now and will not be for a while. Instead of a sidewalk for sale, I would basically like to frame it as borrowing a sidewalk. Like, we are borrowing the sidewalk for somewhere that can better use it until we get out there. Obviously, the property owner and landowner would not be, liable for special assessments in the future via sidewalk if they participate in this thing. And it's also something that everybody would have to agree to. We're not forcing them to pay us. So if they don't want to do this, they build the sidewalk.
Let me ask you as an example, and Trustee Washburn is in the audience, so maybe she can also jump in. If I take the example of I think it's kind of Christina Estate, the existing one doesn't have the sidewalk, and the new extension, we require them to sidewalk.
Yep.
Could the developer come, you're starting sidewalk here, the south of that is not the sidewalk, I'll give you the money and I don't have to build it? Would that apply to that?
I feel like I'm picking on Nancy here today. I apologize.
No,
But
I'm
they
asking for
would,
an input.
So, no, they would not, that development would not apply under this. Because the cross-section of street used there is a urban cross-section with curb and gutter. Curb and gutter is pretty much the key part here, because if you're at curb and gutter, you're already most of the way there. You just gotta put down the sidewalk. And that's unfortunate, but I mean, this is pretty much designed for, you know, cases that are kind of an outlier. Forest kind of things, mostly in this area of the village that didn't have any sewer or water or anything like that. Residential areas, almost all the time, any bit of sidewalk is going to help because people are going to use it. They jump on, they jump off. They walk their dog a little bit on the sidewalk. There's no more sidewalk. They walk on the road. Out here, if there's no one that lives there, that's not necessarily something that people can do very often. And that's our thought.
So all 4 of these conditions have to apply, correct?
Yes.
A, B, C, and D have to apply, otherwise it's sidewalk.
Yes.
But even if all 4 apply, the way your language reads, it's may accept. So even if all 4 conditions are applicable, the village, it still is the village's decision whether to accept.
Absolutely. It's basically got to make sense for everybody. And these variances are almost the extreme case where I say, yeah, that makes sense, because a half a mile of sidewalk out there, like, it would be years before we can catch out there for something else. But I could really use a half a mile of sidewalk right over here on the other side of 90th Street. I could use that today. So that's things that we're thinking about.
One of the other things that I'd like to highlight about this point is if they are seeking relief and go to a variance, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, which, as a reminder, is not subject to any village board approval or anyone else, so the Zoning Board of Appeals is quasi-judicial and makes their own rulings, then we just lose out on that sidewalk entirely. If they grant a variance, it's like, well, you don't have to build a sidewalk, congratulations. So this is our effort to, in those circumstances, try to capture it one way or another, because otherwise we just lose the money.
Yeah, if a developer's like, well, this just doesn't make sense, and they can get obstinate about it. But if we say, okay, we can do this, and we can at least put a sidewalk where it makes sense to you, and I think that could be somewhat okay. I did run this by village attorney. Everything's thumbs up, because it would just be a development agreement between the developer and the village.
Quick question in regards to that, though. So they get we allow them to do a buyout, if you will. Are you going to continue to hold the right-of-way for that sidewalk, though? Mm-hmm. That's the other thing that you make sure you do, so that they aren't planting trees where if we decide down the road that, hey, we want to bring sidewalks in here, we want to make sure that they haven't planted trees right down the middle of it.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Our subdivision code prohibits street trees being planted in the ditch of a rural cross-section. And so there's a couple different ordinances that should prohibit that from happening.
Okay, thank you.
So, Robin, as far as this fund, so you are committing the village to escrow the money, in essence, into a separate fund?
Yeah, we have separate funds for all sorts of different things in the village budget, and this would be the first one that would be actually dedicated to sidewalks and pedestrian, or bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, which has always been really, really tough to get, because formerly it was through special assessment that we would do this.
So what would be the process then down the road, spending the money? Who would make the decision for the village that, gee, a sidewalk on 90th is a great idea, let's spend that money?
If it's under $50,000, that could be the administrator. What's the limit for? So pretty much the budget would decide it, and it would have to get assessed, or basically put in the capital budget. This is what we're going to spend, all that sort of stuff.
Just customary procedures?
Yes, the very customary budget allocation for that money. It's not some sort of special slush fund or anything like that. That's for sure.
Should it come back to the plan commission? I mean, we're the ones granting the waiver here, and then should it come back to the plan commission to approve it?
Technically, you're not, other than adopting the ordinance, the staff is granting the waiver as the way the ordinance is written. Also, you guys don't have any other existing budgetary authority right now, so I'd be hesitant to grant you that unless the village board felt okay with that, but typically they don't delegate their budgetary authority very lightly.
That makes sense.
A couple other funds that work like this now are parks, all of our impact fee funds, things like that. So this is just another budget line that we would create. One of the other things that this will help us do in terms of planning, to answer Tom's point, is we have an annual paving program where we're going out and repaving streets. Some years that includes fully reconstructing streets that need it. Oftentimes when we're doing that and adding sidewalks, it's a question of, are we going to specially assess these people? Is that justified? Are they going to be upset if it's like a really long stretch on an individual lot owner, all that kind of stuff? So this would just be another source of funds where we'd likely take a look at both our neighborhood plans and our annual paving program to see if we're already out there and doing work and we're repaving an urban cross section where we can just slap some sidewalks down and really not mess with the right of way or grading or anything else. We can hopefully leverage some of our existing annual construction contracts to add sidewalks in areas that might benefit from it. So that's how I envision it playing out in the short term, at least.
Robin, when you say a 5-year average, that I'm assuming that's in the past 5 years what the cost would be, right? Now, you put the money in escrow, and obviously costs escalate. Who covers the gap?
There wouldn't be a gap because we would basically, the fund would be living it. It's not like that we are off, like, we will always have 1,500 feet of sidewalk. It'll be the funds for 1,500 feet of sidewalk, but if the construction costs over here or more, it's going to get us what it's going to get us. So that's how it would be budgeted.
Sidewalks aren't necessarily a one-to-one thing either, because depending on the number of crossings, we might leverage this into like traffic calming improvements in a certain area, curb bump outs, things like that. We could leverage it into upgrading from a sidewalk to a multi-use path. There are also, the detectable warning fields and stuff at intersections have certain costs. So just because you get 1,500 linear feet of sidewalk in X project doesn't mean Y project you're going to get the same number based on all those design considerations. So.
Yeah, and if you wait a while, that money might not be worth as much. So hopefully our finance director puts it in a nice money market or something. Any other questions? Yeah, I think the most apt comparison program is the impact fees, only this is just a voluntary one. So, yep. So do we have, is it an ordinance per one? Or is it, I can't remember.
Two separates.
Two separate ordinances?
I believe this one is 22.
No, I'm sorry, I only see one. Or did I not print the other?
Oh, no.
6/8/2020, they're both the same.
Oh, okay,
19/2020, 6/8/2020.
Okay, so it's all one ordinance to do both text
Yes.
amendments, okay.
Yep.
So I'll just move right along. This is authorized administrative adjustments. We're calling this the reasonable accommodation clause in the staff level administrative adjustments, saying the community development director may approve an administrative adjustment in accordance with the procedures of this division, but only for the following. Everything is the same until you get to number 9. It says relief from any provision of this chapter, which is the zoning chapter, to accommodate disabled persons. Disabled persons shall be, 1, defined according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, and 2, the owner or tenant of a property. B, such relief shall, 1, relate to the person's disability, 2, be the minimum necessary to grant relief and full enjoyment of the property, and 3, modifying zoning requirements for existing or new housing for an occupant with a disability. C, the Zoning Board of Appeals may approve any application that meets the spirit but not the letter of these requirements. So basically, if you don't meet exactly these requirements, they still can go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for relief, and they have a little bit more latitude. This process will follow the procedures set forth in 90-490.110 as an administrative appeal, with the exception that their decision will be based on the provisions in 9A and 9B as recommended criteria.
Is this kind of along the lines of the one you were talking about, the fence with the disabled child? And
Yes,
the
this is
tenant?
exactly it. And I had been chastising Wauwatosa for not having this, and then I looked in our code and we didn't have it either. So I figured I will try to get this through. And I took in examples out of literally the zoning code handbook that was released in 2006 that recommended something like this. The example ordinance was in Barron County. The city of West Dallas has something like this. The city of Brookfield has something like this only relating to fences, apparently, and so on and so forth. The things that mostly come up for this, ramps for mobility reason, ramps, and then fences for, as I said, particular mental disabilities, in order to keep people from, running out the road or something like that. So there are other things that come up too. Sam has mentioned several times a variance that came up for a taller garage for an indoor play area for a child that had special needs that couldn't do so outside. So those are all kind of things that come up and are very rare, but when they do come up, it is nice to show that we've thought about it and that we care.
And does this relief run with the land or with the tenant?
So this is another thing. Variances run with the land permanently. This, an administrative adjustment, can run with the tenant. So it can be, we can through this ask somebody to remove something if that is something that is necessary. It's usually not, but it's certainly something that won't be stuck to the land forever.
I've got to tell you, I understand the spirit and the motivation, but I've got some real problems with this in a lot of respects. But number one, I've always thought that laws should apply to all citizens and residents of Mount Pleasant equally. It didn't matter whether Tosh walked in for a variance or you or Nancy or anyone else. It's the same rules apply. Now we're creating a separate benefit to some citizens that aren't available to others. I don't like that. I mean, I can make an argument we should have waivers to zoning being discretionary for charities, nonprofits, veterans, teachers, struggling small businessmen. If we're going to certainly say, let's accommodate somebody who needs a break in life, there's a lot of people, and I don't like going down this path. You can argue, oh, it's just for disabled people, and I understand that, but the laundry list of disabilities under the ADA is as long as your arm. It may not be so rare. Secondly, I think you're creating a remedy to a problem that yet has even appeared in the village. I've not heard of any instances where disabled people needed a zoning break in the village that was so important and was needed to be addressed so quickly that they couldn't go through the normal processes. The examples you talk about are from Brookfield and Tosa and who knows where else, but it's not in our village. So we're creating this favored citizenry waiver to cure a problem that has yet to come up, and I don't like doing that. So then, to make this even more aggravating to me, even if the people don't meet the letter of the law, but if it's the spirit of the law, let's be even more vague. They don't even have to come through and actually satisfy these. Close enough is good enough if you're a disabled person, and the spirit of the law will let any variance be allowed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Close
Technically,
enough is good enough.
That's how it works right now.
If that's how it, well, I'm reading the language
Okay.
in C. You're expressly saying spirit of the law is close enough, and that's what we're going to do here. So I just don't like this philosophically going down this road. I think the verbiage is also a little vague when we talk about full enjoyment, and this is going to be really loosey-goosey as written. It's going to be loose as applied. It doesn't preserve the rule of law applies to everybody. I don't think it's necessary to even have this until real problems start developing, and I'm gonna be voting against this. I just don't wanna go down this road. And it's not that I don't think disabled people need help, but I don't wanna go down this road.
I don't see much difference between this and handicap parking spots. I'm not allowed to park in a handicap parking spot, so it's not being applied evenly or fairly, if you would. Right?
Is there,
I mean, this is saying that the developer, director, administrator may approve. Not saying it's a blanket, they will approve.
no, but you can't go in there and apply for this.
I can't go
Nor
apply
can
for
I.
a handicap parking spot.
There's not an ordinance saying, covering handicap parking spots.
Oh, I think there is for
Yeah.
development and site plans, absolutely.
You gotta have so many per whatever if you're commercial and
that's-
da-da-da-da, and
Right, that's so many parking spots per,
And you gotta have
per
doctors.
place.
Right.
Yeah, and just, there are laws about accessibility that exist in the building code. Like, you know, if you're building a multifamily, development over a certain number of units, you have to have, you know, it has to comply with ADA, which is the federal law that is all about basically carving out these accommodations. But stuff like, you know, the buttons that open the doors and the ramps and the elevators and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the main reason why you don't see like 4, 6, 8 unit buildings anymore is because of elevator requirements in certain states that they, you know, they need to have 2 things and stuff like that. So
None of that authorizes a village official to waive requirements under the zoning law.
So this specifically is kind of saying not that these people get special exceptions, is that the zoning law is causing a specific detriment or harm to them, saying that you can't do something that would otherwise be permitted, or it affects you more than somebody else because of that particular thing. So if we had, I mean, if we had something that, a zoning thing that mandated steps or something, obviously that would be against the ADA, but if somebody says, I don't
Please,
need,
but-
want steps.
Rob, explain to me what's so onerous about our zoning laws that it would be that difficult for a handicapped or a disabled person to follow the typical normal.
I think if I could
Zoning laws.
step in here, the issue becomes when they need to apply for a variance and go to the zoning board of appeals. 99 times out of 100, they should be straight up denied. And so what we are worried about, and what I think laws like this try to consider, is someone with a legitimate request that everyone can agree is reasonable, but the zoning code doesn't allow it, and they have to essentially prove that it's unique situation to the property to gain a variance. So what should happen is they should show up to the zoning board of appeals and should be denied because that's personal preference, or the issue is not related to the subject property, it's related to the tenants of that property. So the zoning board of appeals should basically never grant exceptions for an individual because of their personal preference, whether that's inherited or what their fault of their own or not. It's super duper strict. The zoning board of appeals is also made up of humans, so ultimately what happens is they apply and they get here and they say their situation. The zoning board of appeals says, we don't want to be jerks, so that's fine, and they grant a variance that runs with the land in perpetuity. That's what happened on that specific garage, where the zoning board of appeals allowed them to build a garage of a taller height, just in perpetuity. That property is allowed to have a garage that's up to, I'd say, 25 feet or something. I have to go look at the file.
That's what happened with the case with the, with the mentally handicapped child in Wauwatosa. I would go back in our zoning code history to find cases of this, but I didn't want to spend that much time listening to stuff. But Sam is exactly right. And not only is it that the variance is not applying, the other ways that these happen, that these kind of exceptions, either they just do them, they just do it and don't tell anybody, and it just becomes like an unpermitted structure, or the building inspector looks the other way. So basically, the system for these things to happen is somebody has to just kind of turn a blind eye to it. And, there should be an avenue that's above the board in order to get these things done. And I think this is similar.
I think in your mind, Tom, holding everyone to the law sounds great, but in effect, working as staff, they would get this one way or another. If no one liked it, I think Robin's exactly right. They would either do it and not tell us, or you'd place a different staff person who's not subject to actual written ordinances to turn the blind eye. And it happens.
So in what other areas does staff turn blind eye to the rule, the laws in our zoning, and grant favors or exceptions to people?
I mean, it's definitely not frequent. I'm not implying
No, I'm asking,
that
you're
we're
saying this happens, so I guess I'm curious when it happens.
Every municipal violation that I could just drive around and write tickets all day if I really wanted to, but that's not a use of my time. It's the power of discretion and police power, and that's always the thing that happens. But this is trying to get something that's a little bit more legitimate, and if somebody's building something off the books, then no one gets to inspect it, make sure it's safe, that there's no accidents, stuff like that. So I think ultimately it's better for everybody to keep it at least on the level and offer a pathway. Right now, like Sam is totally right, that there's not a pathway for something that this is my personal issue. I would like this exception from the code. Technically, you shouldn't get approved. But
I understand what you're saying, but I just think there's other classes of people out there who could be making the same argument. My circumstances are such that I'm a charity, I'm a nonprofit, I'm a community group, I'm this great entity with these wonderful purposes, and gee, we would like a fence, a garage, we would like an exception, we'd like administrative discretion, because if you don't give it to us, we're just going to do it anyways. So I just think that logic is a pretty expandable thought process.
I mean, doing something anyways and not being like you're describing somebody that is a borderline case or probably shouldn't qualify for this sort of thing and just doing it anyway. The results of that are much different than somebody that actually needs it. And we're people that would be issuing this, and it's got to pass that test. And if it's not, then it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the thing about the spirit is that some of these things, like the Americans with Disabilities Act was written in 1991. I'm sure there are more things that are considered disabilities since that period of time. So if they have something like that and want to say, I have this, then it would be something that they would have to go in front of that so they can say, oh yeah, that's a thing. I mean, I think the condition of like Asperger's and autism have gone on the books, off the books, on the books in this span since 1991. So it is a finicky kind of thing. And you're right, some of the language is a little nebulous, but that's more to be, I guess, charitable than anything else.
Again, I understand what you're saying, but you just described a situation where staff is going to be, for itself, determining what's a disability because we don't think the ADA captures this particular ailment.
No, staff wouldn't decide that. That would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So the Zoning Board of Appeals now is going to be making a determination of what constitutes a qualified disability above and beyond the ADA.
They are quasi-judicial body. They are assigned for making interpretations of zoning code and all that, and overruling staff decisions or zoning codes decisions all the time. They appeal from the Board of Zoning Appeals, goes directly to circuit court. So you're already in, and we record it and treat it like it's a trial, it's a court case. So that's you have to prove it.
So if you're before the board of the zoning, you're already in a judicial process. And if you don't like their decision, then you go to circuit court.
But the Zoning Board of Appeals would be, without the spirit language in here, if it would have to only be granting this waiver for disabilities within the act. I mean, even judges are supposed to interpret the law. They're not supposed to come up with new categories that aren't in the statute. But again, I want to be solicitous of my colleagues' time here. I know
Mm-hmm.
we've gone for a while, so I've had my say on this one, and I understand, again, your motives and your intents, and I'm not impugning that. It's just mine are more philosophical on this exception and going down a road that I think raises questions.
No, it's great to hear your thoughts and opinions, and that's why we bring you guys here to talk about this stuff. If you guys just said, yes, you guys are awesome, we're going to approve everything you said, well, then why were we here? So I'm glad you bring these things up because they're all really good points. And it makes us think and make sure that, is this what we want? So, and that's up to you guys. And then ultimately the village board to decide, okay, is this doing something that we want to do? So thank you.
One of the points I wanted to make specifically to granting specifically me the authority in my role to grant these administrative adjustments is oftentimes in practice, I find that I am more strict than the actual zoning board of appeals is in both reading the code, because I try to be as black and white as possible, but also in interpreting in other circumstances when we are forced to interpret like the spirit of the code. I ultimately sometimes have to make a call of, on a weird lot, what is the side lot line? Or in something with multiple frontages, what should apply where and things like that. Sometimes we just have to make a call because there are weird circumstances. So, there's an appeals process that goes to zoning board of appeals. And in my experience here at the village, at least, the board of citizens is always nicer to the other citizen than the paid staff member is. So I think your concern in that, like, we would be granting these with a lot of kind of without making them do their homework. In my experience, it's actually the opposite.
And I think you as staff live and breathe this stuff every day, so you have a larger breadth of knowledge of what it would mean if it was granted or not, and whether it is approved by variance or approved by, administrative adjustment.
Sure, and I know you guys have a lot of trust in Robin and I as current staff members, but we also want to make sure this applies to whether we're here or not, or like I'm in my role as community development director or not too. So when you're thinking about it, I would also think about like, people in my position in past or in the future, would you trust them to do the same things or not? And that may change your thinking on it one way or another. I'm not sure.
So one last thing, and then we'll just kind of wrap this up. I see a problem with the term spirit of the code. That term spirit of the code or the ordinance shows up a lot in municipal ordinances and codes and legalese. And I will check with our village attorney about this, but in my experience, that is basically saying if there's something like grammatically wrong or something that's off, that you don't basically read it, word for word. If you get a gist of what something's saying, but then there's a comma placed in the wrong place, don't basically decide someone's fate over a misplaced comma kind of stuff. That's what spirit means. And it's not just like, just however you feel that day. It's kind of like, okay, the ordinance is obviously trying to achieve this. That's going to be our overarching goal.
I understand that. You guys have read a lot more ordinances than I have, but I've not, in my limited experience, seen language that says expressly authorized a staff person or a board to not follow the letter of the law, but instead you have the express authority to pursue the spirit. I've not seen that before.
Yeah, so I mean, that's limits
maybe it's out there
staff.
and I just don't know, but.
That limits staff that it has to be that. It has to meet all of those requirements or else staff can't do it. And that gives basically a reason to go above staff if that is something. Because there's bound to be stuff that we didn't foresee. So we have to have, and that maybe stuff that doesn't apply to these rules, but would be a very compelling and obvious case. So we don't know that, so that outlet for relief is built in. And currently, that outlet for relief is not built into our codes and processes.
And it also protects us elected officials from having to jump in and try to make decisions for private citizens too.
Oh gosh, yeah, stuff like that. And like, if you as elected officials had to defend one of your Board of Zoning Appeals or whatever, turning down a case, something like that, it just looks terrible. And you have to say, well, that's the letter of the law. And
Telling somebody to file an application and going through the long-standing procedure in and of itself is not terrible. That's not turning them down. It's telling them, here's a procedure that applies to everybody, follow it.
well, the
That's-
variance one doesn't apply. That's the thing. That's not the correct avenue
All right,
for
well,
this. Okay.
that's fine. Go ahead.
I just have one question in regards to, it says, it's in regards to the new housing. What stops a developer from coming in and saying, hey, I want to build this particular development, be it cottage courts, whatever, and I want to have 25% of my units dedicated to the ability for an ADA person to come. What happens at that point?
We say go for it. Like, there's nothing prohibiting them from doing that.
Okay, so in other words, but that would be then, you guys would have the authority at that point to allow that variance for, let's say, 25% of the parcels that they're building, the buildings that they're building.
If it conflicts with a code in some way.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. 'cause
Yeah, if
you-
it conflicted in the code in some way, then we would have the ability in an extremely limited circumstance. What doesn't show up on here is there's limited things to which that we can apply administrative adjustments in general. Like, it's prohibited to change like lot size regulations beyond a certain point for it. So we're already reined in certain respects for those and other parts of the code here. But also, for instance, in your circumstance, if they were looking to put in taller fences in the front yard in those specific units or something like that, they would need to apply for each individual property. And then also, it's not really related to a specific disabled person who's requesting. So my general kind of interpretation of this would be, I would deny it, because you're not granting it for a resident. You're granting it for a theoretical development. So they could come in after the fact and, certainly request to do that.
Sure, okay.
I have an example that does do that. Say this is always hilarious, not hilarious, but sad. But you have a memory care facility and you have parking requirements, or a hospice and you have parking requirements based on the number of beds that are there. These folks aren't going to be driving, so you just have the number of staff, and that's it. And other ordinances, like our former ordinance, was like 4 spots per bed, even if these people could not drive. That would be something that this is an ADA disability. This is the code saying that this is what, I mean, thankfully our parking regs are better now, but this is the code saying you have to do something. We need relief from that particular thing. That would be something that would apply in not a single house circumstance. And so thank you for, that popped in my head at the last second. That's how my brain works.
All right. Should we take them together?
It's up to you guys. You can write.
It's written that way, right?
That's the way the ordinance is written.
Incorrect in your packet. I thought it was supposed to be 22 and 23.
I don't have a 23, does any?
I got 23. I don't have a 22. What do you call it?
We had a printer error, so some people might have gotten doubles.
Okay, so maybe. I only
You
have
might
the
need
one
to
at
trade.
23.
So 22 should be the sidewalk and 23 should be the disabled,
Okay,
Okay.
or authorized administrative adjustments, technically.
so do we have a motion for 22?
Which is which?
Ordinance 22, which is sidewalks and pedestrian circulation.
Oh. Well, I don't have 22 here to read, but I can,
I will give you-
I can wing it, I guess.
I don't have it either.
I don't have one.
Okay.
Sidewalks are, that's your.
I don't,
Yeah, okay.
I don't have
So-
those.
Okay, I make a motion to amend the code of
Yeah,
ordinance.
both of these are recommends.
Yeah, motion to recommend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is a motion to recommend ordinance 22-2022, amending Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, 90-420-.70, sidewalks and pedestrian circulation.
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Then we'll look at ordinance 23-2022, which is authorized administrative adjustments.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation for ordinance 23-2022, amending Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, 90-565.20, authorized administrative adjustments.
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. George, you still awake back there? Oh, awesome. Come on up. We get some happy news now.
I hope we have pictures.
No ordinances, do you?
Good thing we bring this on the slow. All right, so Campus Park Phase 2 update. Just a couple of things that I want to highlight before we run through the photos. We've obviously made a significant amount of progress throughout since the last meeting. If you go to the village website, we do have photos from June and July uploaded under the Campus Park Phase 2 section in the Park and Recs Department. We've gone through an awful lot of concrete work, site prep, foundations, shelter construction, which you'll see. So we're going vertical. So a lot of progress has been made thus far. What you'll see here, this is the largest shelter that was on the plan that overlooks the pond there. That's the 30 by 44 size structure there. So that was the roof was actually done this week. So I think that was from a couple days ago. It's not working. There we go. So this is the area where the basketball courts are. To the north is the cricket pitch. Again, another shelter. To the east is where Slater Avenue is. This is the art walk. All of this concrete has actually now been finished. So there's the little art nodes that pop out there, each of those respective areas, and that connects to the walkway that's along the pond there. Again, just kind of an overhead shot of that first structure that you saw that overlooks the pond. Overhead view of the band shell and restroom area. You can see the concrete floor was poured for the bathroom storage, concession, and the 288 restrooms as well. The actual band shell itself has the stone placed in there. So, and that's out looking towards that great lawn area. So you see the brown dirt, that is the area of grass. And then to the north of that is where an area for potential food trucks or concession areas, because there will be power out there. So it kind of gives you a nice visual of what it would look like if you're from the band shell.
Would this be similar in
Yep.
size to the one that's at the zoo?
So it's, I don't know the dimensions of what you talk about, the one for like animal crackers.
Right.
I can tell you that between the columns, it's 40 feet. So it's a fair amount of space in between up on the band shell. I think it might be a little bit smaller, if my recollection, last time I was at the zoo. You get just a different shot from a different angle of the art walk, and the same thing. You can see they're beginning some of the work out there to go vertical. Overhead shot of the cricket pitch. All that concrete has been
poured, and so you can kind of visualize there on either side where potential play fields, whether it would be soccer or lacrosse or flag football or any variety of athletics, could be also utilized in that space. And then this gives a nice view. They've laid out the gravel for the base for the asphalt paths around the park, so they've almost completed all of that. So that subgrade is already out there, and again, with the drone shots, you can see exactly where it's going to connect to the various parts of the park. Out here, you can see where the softball diamonds would be located. They put the foundations for the dugouts. You can see, it's a little bit hard to see from this view, but that's where the backstop fencing and everything would be, and then obviously where the skinned in field would be for the diamond. Is that it? I can't remember. Yeah, so I think that's it as far as the photos go. We are still on schedule. We're about halfway through the construction at this point. wanted to invite any of the Plan Commission to contact me. I can take you guys out individually for a site visit if anybody is interested. I did take Joe out this morning, so I'll turn it over to Joe to see if he has any comments he'd like to share from actually being on site.
No, actually, I said the only thing I would say is that it's going very quickly. They are really moving out there. It's going to be a park that is going to be second to nobody around here, especially with the playground and the splash pad, and in the proximity to that, to the band shell, where you could literally be sitting along and listening to music and watching your kids play in the playground and the splash pad at the same time. It's going to be really something when you get programs going out there. It's
Yep.
really nice.
Yep.
George, you said on schedule, does that mean September or October?
October.
Okay,
That
that's
was the
right.
original plan for,
Well,
it has always been
I've
October.
been telling people October, so.
Yep, yeah. So, yeah, the original construction schedule had us laid out into October.
Even where I live, where you have to be more than 55 years old, people are asking questions.
Sure, yeah.
George?
Yes.
These pictures are great. About a month ago, a couple of people were asking me the status, and I told them to go to the website. And then I went on the website, and I couldn't see much. In fact, I think, in my opinion, there should be more user-friendly access to what's happening at the campus park or something, because I really had to go through many other tabs.
Sure.
Just to find the picture of the overall planning of the campus park.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm glad to hear you said there are pictures from June and July, and I looked at that probably on the weekend of 4th of July, and I couldn't see much. And like I say, so my suggestion is whoever is responsible for the website, or maybe you, or at least make it a little bit more user-friendly, especially for the seniors. Like John said, people are asking questions, and so it could be maybe even a tab or a status update or something.
Sure.
And in addition to the pictures, just like you described, what you just described in maybe a summary grade.
Mm-hmm.
There is a halfway through construction on schedule and blah, 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 the concrete is done, so maybe it will help people to understand.
Sure.
Because like I said, when I directed people, then I said, I should first go and check there.
Yeah.
When I checked there, I said, no, I have questions.
Sure.
So my recommendation is make it a little bit more easier or user-friendly. Number one, to access that tab.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, maybe in addition to the picture, just add maybe a summary paragraph every time you update the picture.
Yep.
It'll make people feel a little bit more at ease, and so that's my recommendation.
Sure. Yeah, Lisa in the communication department, we share the photos with them, and they share it out via social media. So I think there's over 2,000 followers for our Village of Mount Pleasant page, and then the various other Facebook pages usually share those. And then we're limited on the number of widgets on the main page that you can have direct links to specific pages. So to give you an example, we have our park reservations link on the very main page of the website that takes you directly to that page. So I can talk with Lisa to see if we want to put that on the main front of the
Yeah,
village.
yeah.
And that would take them, it would be one click and they'd get to
That
the,
would, yeah, that'll be great, but it should be obvious and not have to go through
Yeah.
many other tabs to find out where the link is.
yeah, like I said, in the area where we have the agendas, the budget, so some of those things obviously are going to stay. So we just have a limited number of what we can actually put to link to specific pages like that, so.
I think again, in my opinion, on the website, if you're going to put the links, it would be nice, under community, what's happening at Mount Pleasant or what's new at Mount Pleasant, and just kind of various links.
Yep,
Yeah, thank you.
makes sense.
Cool, nice job. Looking
Sure.
forward to it. Yeah.
I'll be back with more photos, so.
And your office, your road office is working out now?
It is, yeah. We've got, that's why the senior car group I had mentioned has been out there. We've got our first HOA meeting, utilizing the building coming here on July 30th. So yeah, it's progressing along.
Coffee shop is not open yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, if anybody's interested, please reach out and we can do a site visit.
All right, thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient.
Oh yeah, no problem. Ours doesn't get so much work done.
All right, next is Chief Building Inspector. Any report there?
No report from the chief building inspector.
Okay. No report from Robin. Lisa Oley. Oh, I'm sorry, was there a report from Robin?
Go ahead and go get her.
Staff permits.
Come on up, Lisa.
I'll let that too long.
She's adjusted to her new job.
I am. I'm loving it too. Okay, so I just wanted to touch base on social media. We're 3 months in to it being under this community engagement division within SAM. So I'm pretty excited. This is just a quick snapshot of all the social media accounts that the village has. When I started, we just had Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. As of early June, we have an Instagram account, and of about 2 weeks now, we have YouTube, which we're streaming on now. Cool.
Excellent, good.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of the current number of followers that we have on each platform, and how much the increase of followers we have since April 18th. So we're about 88 days, and the numbers have all gone up. Obviously, consistent posting is really helping. People are seeing everything that we're putting out there. For example, like our Twitter account, I think prior to me coming in this role, hadn't been posted on since October of 2021. So it's quite a while. It was overdue, but our numbers are going up, and we're really happy with it. We are over 3,000 followers on Facebook, which is great. This is some of the analytics for each account. So on the left, the reach, that is basically the number of people who have seen our posts. So, for example, on Facebook, for this 3-month period, we have posted 114 different things. So 248,000 people have seen those 114 posts, which is like 10 times the amount of the village, right? So on average, it's about 2,000 people that see each post. To comment on the parks construction posts that we do help out and support George, the initial post announcement of the construction starting along with last month's post of the construction update were 2 of the best performing posts that we have had in the history of our Facebook page. I think the top post was actually the PD's speed enforcement, speeding enforcement, yeah. But the construction, I think those posts have seen, it was like around 26,000 people saw each one of those posts. So those are really popular. So we do put those on Twitter, on LinkedIn, Facebook. They're pretty popular there. The engagement on the right, that is just the number of times a user has interacted with a post. So we'll post the link, for example, to the parks page that shows the construction. So anytime somebody clicks on a link, expands, they retweet, they comment, they like anything, those are the number of engagements that we are having in this 3-month period. That's kind of all I got for analytics. Are there any questions on it?
Yeah, Lisa, would you like to try to start putting the ordinances for what we have over here in planning and everything onto yours so that everybody understands it? Robin will help you.
Make those video posts.
Robin will help you.
Interviews with Robin.
I'm just
You
kidding.
should lead with Robin's graphs.
Yeah.
That would get you the most engagement.
No, this is good.
Cool, thank you. Robin is a frequent engager on our social media page. I do appreciate that.
The YouTube posts, are these things that you narrate or
So
pull from somewhere, or what are you doing here?
The YouTube, we have our own channel, so people can subscribe to it. We have it set up so there's a live chat feature, similar how it was on Facebook Live. People can comment. The difference with why we switched to YouTube was it aligned with the strategic plan for transparency. So for example, to live stream and to watch a live stream on Facebook, you need a Facebook account.
Right.
To watch a live stream on YouTube, you don't need an account. You need an account to comment and participate in the chat, but you don't need an account to watch it. There are subtitle features, so the closer you speak into the mic, the better it picks up what you're saying. But it is another feature that wasn't offered on Facebook.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other questions?
Are all public meetings being broadcast on YouTube simultaneously, or?
No, we only broadcast the board meetings and plan commission. Those were the same ones that were being broadcast on Facebook as well. So we record audio for other meetings. So for example, like the tourism or the utilities commission, you can listen to the audio, but there's no video of it.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Elisa.
Okay, cool, thanks.
All right. Do we want to go to Sam, or should we go back to Robin?
Okay. Super. Yeah, you know, guys don't want me on social media anymore. Oh, here's me. Just a quick overview of some of the applications and stuff that we've done. Administrative adjustment application, 1916 Hackney Court, for Habitat for Humanity. Reduced rear yard setbacks by no less than 3.75 feet. That was just I think, Sam, was this the one that they missed?
So the Hackney Court was actually for a rear yard setback for a deck on a really shallow lot. The Habitat for Humanity was a separate one where they needed some reduced side yard setbacks for some of the narrow lots down on Racine Street for their building type.
Yeah, they kind of missed by a foot, so they needed a setback adjustment for it. So sign permit applications, actually 2 in the 5509 Durand Avenue shopping center, the one with that normally hosts our Spirit Halloween and Trek Store, and are also one of our municipal complaint properties as well. The Wells Fargo on Durand, and an Ascension Clinic in the Globe Drive. That's the they call it the Mount Pleasant Business Park, basically. Yeah, over there on 20. I always call it like the HSA one. So zoning compliance permit. Again, this has been the zoning compliance permit season because of the Bowser Bounce Back program. So we're getting a whole mess of people applying for businesses, like small space businesses, especially little tenant spots, and then they request a certificate of occupancy, which we didn't used to provide all the time, and then they request us to fill out a letter written to the state government verifying their existence so they can get the Badger Bounce Back program, which is a grant for up to $10,000 for small businesses. It's cool, but I mean, can they throw a little our way for the increased amount of paperwork is all I'm saying. There's quite a few. Some of the bigger ones, though, are the Otera development on Globe Drive and the CNH, their additional building on there on Oaks. Zoning request letters, that's just saying, hey, what the zoning is for that. And, pretty standard stuff. We'll happen to say that there are some progress very, very soon on our 1149 Oaks Road property. But as always, that is going to go through several different departments to tackle. And personally, I just issued citations on 310 Indiana Drive. It was a lot of stuff in the right-of-way, and also the city of Racine had contacted me, Parks Department had contacted me and saying that a Mount Pleasant citizen had trespassed lots of their stuff and junk onto Lockwood Park. And I went out there and it was ridiculous. So I said, we can't issue citations for the stuff that's in Lockwood Park. That's not Mount Pleasant property, but we will be on the ball to get citations issued for the stuff that is on Mount Pleasant property and right of way, and just kind of say, you should kind of clean up all of it. And we got those issued within a week, and the city is going to take care of things on their end and is very grateful. So that's a win-win and cooperation between municipalities, wouldn't you know? So yeah, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Robin. Thanks, Sam.
Two final things to round out the responsibilities of the Community Development Department. First is our contract with the Racine Transit. That has been an annual contract, and we've just started the process for re-upping for next year. We're going to try to roll this one into a multi-year contract, so stay tuned for updates on that one, but hopefully we can utilize the existing funding formulas to have a longer-term contract that's a little bit more consistent year to year without us having to re-up it on an ad hoc basis. And the new transit coordinator, transit director, I'm sorry, Trevor, if I botched your title, but Trevor down at the city has been great to work with so far in his new role there. So we really appreciate that.
Is this falling into our area now? Is it?
Not Plan Commission. So most of these updates are just updates for transparency's sake because they fall within the Community Development Department kind of roles and responsibilities. You don't have any direct approval over the Racine Transit contract. That is actually approved by a transit commission that Trustee Bhatia sits on. So just in our wider community development efforts, I wanted to be transparent. We'll probably only have updates on these every 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, because, one of the things that I've always wanted to do with this is when you start picking out sites for the transit buses to stop, one of my pet peeves is that we don't have bump outs for them, or bump ins for them, if you will.
For sure.
Specifically the one in front of Walmart. That's horrid there.
Yeah, they're not, some of them are a little out of date, and to be fully take responsibility on our end, I don't think Mount Pleasant's been as active as a partner in the transit system as we could have been in the past. So now we have 2 trustees who sit on the Transit Commission. They meet generally on a monthly basis. Sometimes it's less frequently depending on the business needed. And then I'm the staff representative who sits on that Transit Commission as well. So and I'd say in the last year and a half, we've probably had more interaction with Racine Transit than the last 10 years combined, which is nice. So hopefully you can start working on that stuff. And Trevor and the city have been a lot more open to collaborating on both physical infrastructure needs like that, route changes. They were very quick to collaborate with us on a new stop to serve the Aurora Hospital. So all progress on that front. It's been really nice. And if you have any suggestions like that, either send them my way or send them to the trustees, and we'll bring them to the Transit Commission.
Yeah, and I think, well, anytime that we're going to be, some of our properties that we've been approving, and probably, over on Globe Drive, those types of things, those are going to become very popular for folks to come, from the city and want to be able to get through there. And just want to make sure that we don't have, like I said, the situation in front of the Walmart is awful there at times. I mean, it's just, with the buses parked in that roadway, it's an accident looking for a place to happen.
Definitely. We'll certainly work with them, and we certainly in Mount Pleasant end up being a little bit more, like you said, employer dense. And so oftentimes, particularly out near the interstate, these things are in, part of tax increment districts. So going back to our conversation earlier, some of those public benefits that we try to include in the project plans that these tax increment districts can provide would be things like increased accessibility for transit, better transit infrastructure, shelters, bump outs, things like that. So those are things we're thinking about.
Great, thanks.
And then finally, Board of Review. Technically, the assessor's contract falls under community development, so that's Dan. The Board of Review is similar to the Board of Appeals in that it's quasi-judicial, but they meet once a year if you'd like to appeal your tax assessment. And Dan wrote up a brief summary for me. So the Board of Review heard 27 objections from property owners to their 2022 assessments. 7 objections were to commercial properties, while 20 were residential. Board of Review began July 21st at 9 a.m. and ran all day until 4 p.m. They reconvened at July 22nd at 9 a.m. and concluded about noon. They anticipate about 6 to 7 cases to be appealed further to either Circuit Court or Department of Revenue, 2 Walgreens, 2 Walmarts, and 2 B Corps warehouses. So in general, it's our typical commercial people who are appealing their assessments, and everyone else is more or less getting the relief they seek through Board of Review. So if you have any questions further about that, please reach out to Dan, Village Assessor, directly, and he'll happily walk you through anything. So with that, thanks for being patient with us today and going through the meeting. The next one is August 17th, I believe, something like that.
Okay, then we have one more thing on the agenda. That is the approval of the minutes from June 22nd, 2022. I hope you've had a chance to.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion a second. Any questions, comments? Go ahead, Ram.
I was not here, so I will be,
Abstaining.
I'll abstain.
Okay. All right. Any other, no questions, comments? Approval on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Move for adjournment.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.